What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video, and welcome to Garage Mods episode 2. Today we're going to be going through and installing the DDM Garage high lift conversion for this garage door right behind me, as well as a Chamberlin RJO70 wall mount opener. Now, a couple things before we get started. If you're watching this video for the wall mount opener, you do not need a high lift conversion for the wall mount opener. All right, I mean, I can actually go and install it on this one without any problem at all. If you are going to be going through and doing the high lift conversion, you could probably get by with a standard ceiling mount. The reason I opted for this one is just to get like some additional clearance and kind of for aesthetics and stuff too. Let's go ahead and open both boxes and see what it is we're going to be working with today. All right, let's start with the DDM Garage Kit. Obviously, we got our springs here. These are going to be the winding bars, so I'm going to use those to unwind the current springs and then rewind these guys right here. We got our high-rise pulleys, we got some new cables, we got a whole bunch of brackets, hardware, and more brackets. Now, when I ordered the kit from these guys, I paid $340. That includes shipping and everything. If I were to go through and piecemeal this thing together myself, it'd run right around $250, $260. The only reason I didn't do that and just opted to go with the DDM kit is specifically because I wasn't sure what springs to use. And after hours and hours of Googling, I still couldn't quite figure out how exactly the math worked. So I just went ahead and shot an email over to those guys, and they went and put everything together, and it was awesome. I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to go and check them out. What they're going to ask you for on the high-rise kit is they're going to ask you for the door dimensions. This one is a 16 by 7. They're going to ask you for the height up to the top of this pulley, which for anybody looking, yes, the previous owner did install that backwards. They will also ask you for the distance from the top of the pulley all the way up to the ceiling, accounting for any difference in ceiling height. So like if we have lights or anything like that, like I'll probably put a couple like right along here. I allowed about 4 inches for that. One other thing with this kit as well, I opted to recycle the existing track. So I'm actually gonna go and pull this down and then cut off, I think right around 16 inches. I'll double check on that of this. And we're gonna use that in conjunction with these brackets right over here. And then we're actually gonna go and bump the whole curve up and then add that extension piece right along there. So that's it for the parts section. If you guys have any questions on that part so far, go ahead and hit me in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer those. The very first step we're going to need to do before we jump into this is going to be removing the existing garage door opener, which, as you can see, I have already done. This is super easy. You basically have these 2 bolts right here. On the forward side, there's 2 more bolts again. And then you're going to have this pin, which actually goes and attaches to the top of the door itself, right over here. Pulling that thing down is super easy. Honestly, it took probably 10 minutes. Basically, unplug the unit, undo the bolts, drop it down. Let's go ahead and get to unwinding these bars right up here. All right, so a couple things before we get started with this. First and foremost, make sure you got a set of winding bars. These things were $10 from DDM Garage. If you want to save a little bit of money, you can also go over to Lowe's and you can pick up a about a 36-inch, half-inch steel rod. Just cut that thing in half. It's the same thing. Just don't use any screwdrivers, specifically because you really cannot get sufficient leverage when you go and plug this thing in, right? Like this is super easy with a screwdriver. I guarantee you it's going to be a lot harder. Second thing, make sure you pin the door closed, either on one side or the other, just like slide a bolt through or something. Just because when you're doing this, the last thing you want is to have somebody lift the door up on you, pop you in the head, knock you off the ladder. That would kind of suck. Other than that, let's start pulling some springs off. All right, so we ended the first one. Yes, I'm using channel locks. Yes, I know it's not the right tool. All the stuff I have is metric. So when I go to the store later, I'll be buying something that's the actual size for this. But to get them off, I'm not reusing them. This is no big deal. After you loosen up the first one, take your winding bar. You can just set it right down here at the top of the door. And then we can go and loosen this guy up too. So we got a nice little quarter turn. Now what we're gonna do, put our other winding bar in there, lift up, this one falls out. Then we're gonna be doing this for about the next 5 minutes.
A few minutes later.
Now that we got both these loose, we're gonna go and disconnect them here at the center, and then I'm gonna go and pull off the pulleys and the cables and stuff at each end as well. All right, so now we got both these pulleys disconnected. We got the one on either side. We're gonna slide this side out of that bearing, so it's gonna go and come this way. Once it does, we're gonna be able to go and pop and shift this bearing out of this bracket right here, and then this whole tube is just gonna go and come right at this little groove and slide out of that bearing down that way. All right, so we got this thing over here. This bearing here in the center didn't actually want to go and tap out that way like it was supposed to. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to go and just like pull the tube out of this little groove here. We're gonna need to take it off anyway, so I just unbolted it. All right, guys, the next step is very, very important, all right? We're gonna start disassembling the track next, but before we do that, you're gonna need to come up here and pin the top of the door closed. I've seen people use a drywall screw on this. That makes me a little bit nervous, so I went ahead and used just a 1/2-inch bolt here. And as you can see, that is a pretty good job of holding it in place. Now the reason we're pinning this up is because the top wheel here on the door actually goes and sits in this piece of track that we're gonna be taking off here in a second. And the last thing you want to have happen is to have the whole panel just like come down on top of you. That would really suck. So make sure you do that. Maybe you want to go and add a couple more just for safety's sake. I think it'll probably be fine with one just because it's still going to be in the vertical position there. Worst case, I'll get a new garage door and you guys will see that part too. What we're going to do, we're going to need to go and pull these 4 bolts out. And then there are 1, 2, 3 bolts up along that section of wall. And then back here on this vertical bracket, you just got the 2 bolts up there at the top. So we're gonna go ahead and pull all those down, and then this whole section right here should just come down all in one piece. All right, so we got this guy pulled off. I already went ahead and disconnected it from the vertical right there. I went ahead and double checked the dimensions, and it looks like we're gonna need 15¼ inches off of this bracket right here. I already went ahead and measured it. This is exactly 15¼ so I went and taped it off. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and slice that. I'm only showing you guys the right side, and then I'll go ahead and do the left off camera, just because honestly that'd be kind of boring to watch twice. Time out, time out, time out. Now, before we go any farther, pardon my hair, I know I look like the Chia Pet version of Wolverine here, but bear with me. I have already installed this high-rise kit, as you can see, except I did it wrong, specifically because, in my opinion, the directions suck. So let me show you what I'm talking about so you guys don't go and run into this same problem that I'm having. But first, let me show you what specific problem that is. All right, so as you can see here, I need to go and cut a track extension of 15¼ inches at ±7 degrees. The way I understand that, and the way you probably are understanding that too, if you've gone to school literally anywhere in North America, or probably many other parts of the world, is that 7 degrees is gonna be your margin of error. That means that I need to be between 187 and what's that, 173, okay? Basically as flat as humanly possible, all right? That is totally and completely wrong. However, that is how I installed this. So if you guys go and do that too, just be aware you're gonna have a problem. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so if you do this at 0, all right, I had to go and drill these extra holes right here, which is totally wrong. You should not need to do that. This piece right here should go and mount right up here to this, okay? And that's because I cut this as flat as possible. Now, if I cut it at 7 degrees, or in this case, -7, right? You'll see, if you go right up there, that it would have bolted up perfectly. If you wind up doing the same thing I did, and you wind up with a little bit of an alignment issue, listen to this. You hear that? Right about there? That is the door binding on the frame right here. In fact, if I were to go and get a little bit closer to this, you'd actually go and see rub marks right up here. So I'm gonna go and take this thing completely back apart, show you guys the right way to do it. I'll have a couple extra holes in the assembly process, so sorry, bear with me. Also, as you can see, the garage is a little bit more finished than it was, so this video is gonna jump around a little bit between kind of finished and unfinished, so just don't mind the background, the core content is all the same. So, pro tip, whatever it says in your instruction email, get the length of track, disregard the plus or minus entirely, like just don't even pay attention. Just know that you will need to cut it at whatever degree number is indicated on your particular build. Anyway, that's enough of me talking. Let me go ahead and rip this thing back apart, and we'll jump into the proper assembly this time to show you guys how to do it right for yourself if you choose to do it this way. All right, so now that we got this thing taken back apart and disassembled here, what we're gonna do is take this piece and then trim it to 7 degrees. You can see I already marked a line on there. And the reason we're doing that is so that when we go and reattach it, that right there will become our flush point, all right? The reason we're gonna wanna do that is so that you wind up kicking it out away from the cross beam and not having the problem that I showed you guys earlier. Now, if you're like me and you need to know where 7 degrees is on this thing, you don't have a big boy like table saw or anything, you can go and get this protractor. I got this thing from Lowe's. It was like $8, not even. And as you can see here, what we're gonna do is put this thing pretty much square on the end of it. This is gonna be at 90 degrees. All right, and then you got, I don't know how well y'all can see this, but there's a little mark right there. Okay, so we're gonna go off of 90, all right? Now, the reason we're going off of 90 for this one, I'm gonna be marking it at, what's that, 83 degrees, okay? So if I mark this at 83 degrees, bring this thing right down here, and then you can go make your mark, and that right there is where we're gonna go and trim, okay? Now, a couple things with this here. You wanna make sure that your cut is gonna have an angle away from the door, all right? So we're gonna go 7 degrees right there, so that it's more about like that. Because if I went 7 degrees the other way, then it'd be like this, and that would be obviously a pretty huge problem. So just make sure that whatever direction you're cutting, you're going the right way, because you don't want to have to go and cut off another piece of track or go find one or anything like that. Now, ideally, what you'd want to do is take your whole big long piece of track here and then go through and mark it like that, right? That way you can go and get one nice cut all the way across, instead of having to go through and trim it on a tiny little piece like this guy. Now, what we should have is a nice forward angle. Look at that. Cool. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side once I go and get that assembled. But let me show you guys how to go and assemble the rest of the track. I will have one problem here, as you can probably spot right now. Since these bolt holes are no longer aligned, I'm gonna need to probably kind of oblong that one a little bit more. You will need to cut this at 7 degrees on both sides. As you can see, we got this one sliced down here. That one lines up nice and pretty. However, if that one's aligned, if you look up here up top, these corners actually wind up hitting. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this on both sides, and then we'll get back to the assembly part. And now, ta-da! All right, so we got our 7 degrees on that side. And look at how much nicer this is gonna bolt in. Boom. So I do have this set up a little bit high on the bolts right now, just for adjustment's sake, so I can get this in and out. Obviously, you guys won't have to worry about that, because now you know to cut your stuff at the proper angle. It's not plus or minus, it is whatever the degree says. All right, so now that we got our extension piece cut, we're gonna start assembling the high-rise portion of the track, all right? So first thing we're gonna do is take our curved piece right here, and you're gonna take this mounting bracket, right like this. You're gonna want these 3 slots basically facing the wall portion of this, okay? So it's gonna be away from the curve, all right? Take these 2, then we're gonna go slide it on right like this. We'll take a couple of our track nuts, which is gonna be the little guys, and just go ahead and thread those on right quick. All right, so whenever you're putting this on, what you're gonna be looking for is you want this little oval shape right here. Basically, you want this piece of track just dead in the center of that, so it cuts it right in half. Once that's on, go ahead and torque it down with a zip gun. So the next thing we're gonna do is gonna be assembling the slotted track right here with this other bit of angle iron right here. So what you're gonna do is take one of the larger 1/2-inch fasteners. This one's gonna have the round side right here, and then it's also got this little box portion right inside the threads, all right? All you gotta do is take this guy, throw it on a slotted part, put this right here, take your 1/2-inch nut, and thread it on there. Now, this part is important, okay? What we're gonna wanna do is make sure this thing's a nice, tight 90 degrees. So I got my T-square here. That's nice and snug. Take the old zip gun and tighten it down. All right, double check that, make sure it's flush. We are good. All right, so now it's time to marry the 2 sections together. All we're gonna do is take the piece that we just bolted together in conjunction with this guy. So once you slide these things over, kind of bring them up about to where they're gonna wind up being. I'd recommend grabbing a set of vice grips. I got some needle nose ones right here. I'm just kind of clamping it right here. So that just makes it a little easier to work on. Next, you're gonna need 2 more of these 1/2-inch fasteners. We're gonna put them right down here on the underside of this bracket. Now we're gonna grab another one of the 1/2-inch fasteners and throw this guy up here on the top of this track to hold it in place. Next thing we're gonna do is take that piece of track we cut, take a couple of these guys, throw them in there quick. These are just a couple of track screws. These are gonna be those 7/16 nuts that are gonna come in the kit. The next thing we're gonna do is take 2 more of those track screws and assemble this bracket here. Basically what this looks like, you have the L bracket, okay? And it's gonna sit right down in the groove on top of this guy. For the next portion, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put a couple of these track screws in this particular bit of track right here, but I'm not gonna go and tighten them down, specifically because I might need to make a few adjustments to the actual holes themselves that I already drilled right here. What you're gonna wanna do if you don't have any holes here yet is actually go and place this up next to the other piece of track and then mark your 2 holes, which I will show you here in just a second. So this right here is the number 8 bracket, and as you can see, it goes and lips over the B bracket. Go ahead and fasten this in. Then I went ahead and bolted the lower track on it with these 2 right here. And then, because obviously we got these 2 holes right here, we need to go and put 2 more down here on the cut edge. All right, so that's gonna be pretty close. I went ahead and marked, you can see these 2 pencil marks right here. I'm gonna go and punch holes in this, and then we can go ahead and get everything assembled. And we're back. So once you got your holes drilled, go ahead and take the 2 track screws and just kind of thread those on. Again, I'm not making them tight by any stretch of the imagination because I might need to go and finagle this a little bit here. But let's at least get them started and get them on. There we go. All right, so now that we got the right side done and hung, I'm gonna go and jump over to the left side, and then I'm gonna show you guys how to go and install the springs and the pulleys, etc. here in just a second. So let me wrap up that one, and we'll get back to it. All right, so now that we got this all done, the next thing we're gonna do is actually run the new cables. And in order to do that, you can see it sits just on the inside of the door here. And then right down here, hopefully you guys can see this okay. Behind this wheel, there's actually a little nub that the cable's gonna go and attach to. So what we're gonna do is pull the rest of the cable down and out. All right, so just took it out here. These are old, so I really don't care about them. And then we're gonna do a set of needle nose pliers to pull off the old one, and then we're gonna do the same thing, only in reverse, to go and run the new one. So we'll just loop the end of the cable back on there, and then run it all the way back up. We got this pretty much prepped here, ready to go. One thing I did do is just loosen this piece of track right here, and then it gives you just enough play. We can pull this to the side a little bit, and then come in here with your needle nose. There we go. There you go. Now to put the new one on is basically the same thing in reverse. So we got our new cable right here. Already pretty much started on there. All right, so loop it on the back and then pull it forward as much as you can. And we're gonna take our pliers and get that last little push up and over. And voila. So now we got our new cable on here, and then we're gonna run it just, there we go, on the inside of all these tracks, all the way up. And then after you get a loop back over, you're gonna see it run right here on the inside of the door. And then I just got it hung right over here so that when we go and get the new pulleys attached, it'll be a lot easier. We can just wind it up. And as always, if you did have to go and loosen up this piece of track right here, just make sure you go through and reattach that guy, because that'd be a bad thing to forget. Also, pro tip, it's a lot easier if you start up here and then feed it down the side here and loop it down to the bottom instead of trying to loop it up that way like I tried to do on that side. All right, so as you can see, I went ahead and rehung the bar. I just put the couple of bolts up there in the middle. I did pull the springs and the pulleys off from the old setup just to make it easier, because I mean it's pretty sizable anyway, just to make it a little easier to manipulate. Now if you'll notice, I do not have the end bearings on either side, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and load the springs on there and the pulleys on there, and then I'm going to put the bearing end cap on, and once it's on, then I'm going to go and bolt it up to this bracket here. Now that's not necessarily something that you need to do. One of the things that I learned when I was working on airplanes is that it's easier to go and move the lines to the component and then bolt the component in. So I'm going to apply the same principle here, get everything loaded on there, put the end caps on, and then bolt the end caps to the rail instead of trying to go and manipulate a 16, 17 foot long pole, however long it is. So that's what we're doing. Let's go ahead and throw the springs and the pulleys on. I do want to go ahead and tell you guys a couple things about these as far as orientation goes. So if you look right here, you'll notice that there is a red mark on the pulley and a black mark on this pulley. And if you look right down here at the winding cones, hopefully you guys can see that. This one here has a little red mark right here. And that one has a black mark. Now, what that means is this one with the black mark, both the spring and the pulley here, are gonna be going up here on the right side of this pole. These two with the red marks are gonna be going on the left side of the pole as you're looking at it from inside the garage. Real quick before I go throwing this one up here. So this one is the new spring, and you can see this thing's colossal compared to this teeny tiny little baby spring that was on there before. Same story with the pulleys. The old one is over here on the right side. Look at how much more massive this is. Just so much more cable wind. That's crazy. All right guys, next thing we're gonna do is wind the cable around the pulley. So first thing we're gonna do is take our swedged end and put it right in this little groove right there. And then it just winds backward over top this groove here. This is very difficult to do one-handed while holding a camera. I'm gonna have to put you guys down for a second, but whenever you get this nice and tight, what you're gonna have is a cable that runs right down there like that. So it should go straight up and down, unobstructed. It should not be chafing on anything on its way up. It should be a straight shot from the pulley right down there to the bottom of the door. All right, once you get your spools wound, it is time to go to everybody's favorite part, the final step of the high lift install, and that is gonna be winding your springs. Now the email that I got from DDM Garage said I need to go 9.3 turns, which works out to be 37 quarter turns. Make sure you got your ratchet with your 7/16 socket, because otherwise you're gonna be jumping down a ladder to grab it. Let's go ahead and get started. 36. 37. So now we're gonna come up here to these red jam nuts, get them finger tight. Then we're gonna wanna go about a half turn once they're finger tight. So you don't want these things super tight just because you don't wanna go punch through it. So right about there is a half turn on one. And then coming over here to the other one. Boom, half turn on that guy too. Now theoretically, this should stay put. On to the next one. 36. 37. Tell you what, with all the gyms closed, that's a good arm workout. There's a half. All right, moment of truth. Whew. All right, cool. As you can see, I pinned the door and it's starting to come up by itself a little bit. So I think what I'm probably gonna wind up doing is taking about 2 turns out of each of these, most likely. I'll start with one and see what it does. Now the very last thing we need to do up here is go and add some lube. This is just 3-in-1 oil. Reason we're doing this is because these are springs, guys, and these are a mechanical component. So if we just leave them as is, you're gonna have metal on metal contact. That's gonna radically shorten the life of the spring. So we're gonna go and add some lube. You don't want any lube down here in the winding cone, so leave the last couple inches blank, but we're gonna run probably from here all the way down to here. Okay, we just got done tightening the springs. I did 35 on each of them, and this is now the first time I will be opening the door with this on here. I'm hoping it works. Let's see. Whoops. Helps if you unlock the door, huh? There we go. All right. Here we go. That is so much better. Wow. That is so much better. Look at that. Got loads of clearance. That went up so smooth. And look at this. You got a nice probably 1.5 inch gap there. I am so pumped. Overall total time, if you do it properly the first time from the get-go, it is 3 in the morning right now. And I started at about 9 o'clock, so about 6 hours DIY, including cutting everything, measuring it, blah, 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 blah. I think if I had somebody else here helping me, we could have got it done a lot faster, just because I would have been able to go and like pull it down, throw it back up, and you know, pretty much have one person working on each side kind of deal. But overall, golly, dude, the results are awesome. I am so happy with this, and it is 1,000 times smoother than it was when I started. Yeah, so I'm pumped. That was fantastic. DDM Garage, thank you guys, appreciate it. This kit is fantastic. I think probably if I had gone with the pre-measured tracks, that would have saved, I don't know, at least a few hours, because I had to go and like make stuff and whatever else, whereas if I just had to like throw them on, I mean, that would have taken 10 seconds. So yeah, overall, super happy with the kit. Super smooth, no binding, and I am 11 inches from the top of the ceiling. So plenty of room to go and flush mount lights if that's what I want to do. But that is it for the high-rise portion of this video. Let's go ahead and move on to the Chamberlin RJO70 flush mount garage door opener. This is a direct drive unit. I'm super pumped. Picked this thing up over at Lowe's. This is not sponsored by Lowe's by any stretch of the imagination. Although, Lowe's, if you want to hook it up, I'm just saying, I would entertain it. That'd be cool. Next up, we got our Chamberlin opener. This should be pretty straightforward for a lot of you guys. It's just kind of a standard garage door opener. The only difference is instead of mounting on a ceiling, this thing actually goes and mounts to the wall. So we got this here is the primary opener. All right, you got your ceiling light right in here. So that's gonna go right there where the old one went. This is gonna be our main switch wire that's gonna go and run from here over to the opener across the ceiling. I did opt for the battery backup unit, so this is a little bit more expensive. This unit was 460 bucks, if I remember right, over at Lowe's. This right here is gonna be different than your standard garage door opener. This is basically a slack tensioner, just to make sure that it doesn't unspool the cables too much, because that'll cause problems too. This is gonna go and attach to our torque tube where the springs are. And this right here is our actual lock, which we're gonna go in and put probably right about here somewhere on the door. Then of course we got our garage door opener. These are gonna be the brackets for our sensors right here. So these are gonna go and attach basically right down here at the base of the door. Now for this too, I also opted to go and purchase this keypad here, which is gonna go and mount outside. This is a separate purchase. It is not included in the kit, and it's about an extra 40 bucks over Lowe's. All right guys, so first things first on the Chamberlin opener here, we're gonna need to go and attach this little, I don't know, drive collar, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's gonna go right over here on this side. When I go and tighten these down, we're gonna do the pretty much the finger tight, and then the half turn past them, just like we do on the torsion rod at the top of the garage. Next thing we're gonna do, and honestly this is a little bit sketch to me, this right here, this teeny tiny little thing is the mount. I got these most of the way on. I left enough room to kind of wiggle it back and forth if I need to, just so that if you know, I need to go and mount it closer to the wall or farther away or whatever else, I mean, I can go ahead and do that. So pro tip there, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up on there and then show you guys what all we're gonna be working with and wiring up here for the rest of this. All right, so next thing we're gonna be installing is the rope. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't like having extra little bits of string and stuff on the end of this, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this cut down a little bit, and then we're gonna attach this right up there to that little silver deal. And it's our little pull cable. That's our emergency release for the system. And there you have it. I went ahead and pulled it. So this is about how much it's gonna go and extend. It's probably about 4 inches or so. I went ahead and pulled it just to make sure, A, that it worked, and B, to go ahead and lower the door so that we get it attached to the cable slack portion of it. As well as start running some of the wires and stuff up and over and all that happiness. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is jump into a little bit of wiring. This right here is gonna be our wall plate, all right? And in order to run that, I need to go and run this wire from this wall right over here, up and through the ceiling, across, and then down. So I'm gonna do that, and then since we're up there, I'm also gonna go ahead and run the wire for these sensors. This right here is gonna be the amber one, so this one goes on the left. You can kind of tell that one looks a little yellow. And then this one here is our green sensor. This is gonna go on the right side of the garage door. So for these, it's super easy. You got this rounded bolt right here, and then this is squared on the inside. So put that in there. And then you're gonna go and take this clamp right here, and trying to do this one-handed is hilarious as always. There we go. Put that in there, and then take your wing nut right here and then thread it on there, and it'll wind up looking just like this one once it's done. Now these, all they do is clip right in here onto the track. So this here is gonna be our right side sensor installed. As you can see, we got right about, say 12 inches to the top of the bottom bracket thing. And if you look right down there, we've actually got the other one installed already too. Basically all I did for these was measure the 12 inches from the bottom of the floor up to the top of this guy right there. All right, the wiring part of the equation is pretty much wrapped up from the standpoint that all the wires are run. The only one I had an issue with was actually the door switch over by the entryway into the garage from the house. There wasn't enough cable. It got probably 3/4, 4/5 of the way there. Pardon me, I'm all sweaty. I was upstairs running wires and stuff, and it's like 100 degrees out right now. Yeah, I got about 4/5 of the way there. Then I had to go and splice in some extra from the sensor that I had that was over on the right side of the door. Not a huge issue, but the two sensors and stuff ran fine. Had plenty of cable and stuff there. I only had to make the one splice. Those are pretty much good to go. Right now we're gonna go and run the tension monitor. This thing's supposed to be within about 6 inches or so of the drum here. And I did have to go and add this chunk of 2x4 that I still need to go and bolt in. But basically this is gonna go and sit pretty much just right there like that. So let me go ahead and bolt in this extra piece of wood that I had to go and grab. And then we'll bolt down the sensor and stuff and run the cord and stuff, or run the cable too. For the next step, we're gonna be installing the door lock. So this thing, basically manual operation function. And then this thing will also go and plug into the box up here, so that whenever the door is down, it'll go and automatically engage this lock, right like that. All right, so we went ahead and got the lock installed. This is super easy. It's got a little sticker, basically, that goes and tells you where to drill and what size to drill. You can go and slap that on the inside. I actually went and chose to do it over here, just kind of make things a little bit easier. And after that, it's really just a matter of going and installing those two bolts and then running the wire wherever you need to run the wires. As you can see, my wall's painted now, but I went ahead and ran this thing up through that little eyelet, and then it goes basically up into the ceiling like we just talked about. Now that this is done, we can move to installing the light. Now this thing is super easy. Basically, you got these two holes right here. And I'm gonna go and take these and just run them up into a stud. It does come with drywall anchors as well, so if you do need to go and put it in your drywall, you can just run the drywall anchors in and then throw these up there. In order to gain access to those two screw holes, you just gotta go and pop this little cover off, and then you got one hole on each side basically. So super easy, and then you just gotta plug it in. And once you got it bolted down, it should look about like this, except you're probably gonna have a blank off plate over here. I broke this one, I just need to get a new one. But yeah, now we get to do the wiring part. As far as the wiring goes, I'm gonna start with this switch right here. We got our red and white wire hanging out the wall right here, and basically all we're gonna do is cut this down to probably right about there. And on the back of the switch here, obviously we got R for red and W for white, and as if that's not clear enough, it actually spells out red and then WHT over here. All right, so now we got those in, and there you go, nice and flush. All right, so now we got everybody's favorite part, and that is wiring up this mess here. This is actually pretty straightforward. What we're gonna do is first take the wall switch, and that's gonna be these two guys right here. What we're gonna do for these two sensor wires is actually go and split these, both of them. We're gonna take both the black wires and run those together, and that's gonna be one hole, and then we're gonna take both white wires together, twist those together, and that's gonna be the other one right here. After that, we're gonna go and take this green wire for the cable sensor right over here, and that's gonna be both of these guys right here. And lastly, we're gonna go and take a little plug for our door lock, and that is going to be this plug right there. If you give me just a second, I'll get this thing all wired up and then show you guys what it looks like when it's all nice and tidy and done. And there you go. I probably could have cut these down a little bit more just so they kind of fit in there a little bit better, but I prefer having a little bit more slack instead of not quite enough. All right, so now that we got this thing plugged in, we're gonna go and take our battery and install it in this little box. Now this thing is, honestly, I mean, it's just like any other battery. So this is gonna be terminals facing outboard. It's gonna be red wire up top, black wire on the bottom, and it just slides back in there, put the cover back on. All right, I twisted that around a little bit. We got the red wire down here, black wire up here. And now, just gotta go and take this guy, flip that back up in there, and then reinstall our screw, and we'll be ready to program openers here in a second. Before we do that though, it's always best to go and double check and make sure your sensors are aligned properly. If they are not aligned, then this little green light bulb and the amber one on the other side are not gonna be illuminated. So now that we got this thing plugged in, the battery installed, the battery is currently charging, which is what this little flickering green light means. We're gonna go and set the up and down travel on the opener right here, and then after that's done, then we'll get to programming some remotes. All right, so in order to go and set the travel on this guy, first things first, you do need to make sure if you did have to go and pull on this emergency release that you re-engage the door. So if you pull down hard on this cable, you're gonna hear it click again, which means the door is re-engaged. All right, so now press and hold this, heard the beep and the door unlock. Now we go up. There it goes. All right, so once it's up, go ahead and push this. It beeps, down starts flashing. Go ahead and hold it down. All right, once the door is all the way down, come back up here and push this. And now we're gonna go and push this button again. It's gonna go and run it all the way up. All right, good. And same thing with this one, we're gonna go down. Perfect. And you also heard the lock re-engage. So now that this is done, we're gonna go and get to programming the openers. The opener that came with it did come already pre-programmed, so we're not gonna have to do that. I do have a keychain opener as well as a keypad that we're gonna go ahead and do though, and I'm gonna show you guys that. All right, now to program remotes, like I said, the one that came with it is already programmed, but I'm going to be programming this keychain fob that I got right here, as well as this keypad for outside. So what we're gonna do is come over here and flip this thing up. We're gonna hit the learn button twice. And then we should be able to go and hold this down. You heard a beep? That should be good. All right guys, now to go and do the keypad, that's gonna be a little bit different, okay? So first thing we're gonna do is actually program the keypad itself, which has instructions right up here on how to go about doing that. And then we're gonna go and pair it up to that. Let's see, first thing we gotta do is hold these guys down until it stops blinking. Whenever that happens to be. Okay. And then enter your 4-digit PIN. All right, and then press the pound button, so pound, okay. We got a yellow light, so I think we only need to hit this once. All right. Press and release the 0 button. All right, so now, should be able to do this here. Okay. And then type in my secret code. And I think that worked. Let's see what we got here. Two for two. All right, now the only thing left to do is to go and mount this guy right here to the side of your garage door. And yeah, that's about it. All right guys, that is effectively it for today's video. I really hope you all enjoyed it. Found this content useful. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comment section below. Other than that, I will see y'all very soon in the next one, and be sure you tune into it, because we're gonna be installing the BenPack HD9 4-post lift. Catch you guys next time.